Okay, everyone, welcome to the final part of the Retro React to Dark Souls 1. Now, technically, we've reacted to all the gameplay. That same night when I quit the game, I reviewed it. The Hateful Truth review. Now, keep in mind, this is me reviewing a game I haven't beaten yet. All right? So, let's see what I have to say quickly, and then I want to look at the comments. We're not going to watch the whole video, simply because this video is 30 minutes long. But I'm just curious. Let's see here.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Hateful Truth game review series. My air conditioner is getting fucking loud as hell, and I'm about to go punch it. Shut up. Okay. Sorry about that.
No place in Connecticut.
Why not? Start a unique review with a unique beginning, right? Today we are going to talk about an extremely unique game. Today we're going to talk about an extremely controversial game. A game that is probably one of the most polarizing games in human history, okay?
So this review is done right away, so this is still about 13 years ago, right? I mean, look how different I look now. Now my face is a lot skinnier than this. But of course, my whole beard is now gray. Back then it was like super dark hair, right?
Okay. And I have mixed feelings about it. I'll be honest, I did not beat it. And the reason I did not beat it is because the game requires such a massive investment of time in order to beat it that I actually just, number one, didn't want to invest that much time into this particular game. And number two, I actually stopped having fun with the game. Now, not to say that that is going to be the case for everyone who plays this game. Just like every Hateful Truth review, we're going to be fair, and we're going to talk about the pros, the cons, we're going to discuss all the aspects of the game, and then I'm going to give you my final opinion on it and how I think it should really be scored when you are comparing it to all the other games out there, and when you are comparing it to what the average gamer is going to be looking for, because that...
Are there segments? It said there were oh, look! There are segments, but this doesn't make sense. How could there be segments? Oh, it's done a little differently. Difficulty, the Soul system. Dark Souls is not a bad game. Let's see difficulty. Let's skip to that.
The difficulty, okay? It's grueling. It's difficult. Now, there's two different kinds of difficulty. There's difficulty because there's a sharp learning curve, and then there's a difficulty because the game makers were fucking malicious. This game has both, okay? Yes, there's a very strong learning curve in learning the controls, in learning the way the world works. And
by the way, this is back when I used to put hair product in my hair, like hair gel, to keep it. So basically, my hair here is hard because I have hair gel in it. You'll notice when I turn my head, there's like spikes sticking out. Because what would happen is my hair would be pushed back, and then it would curl out as it dried. It would go whoop and curl out at the back of my head. I stopped using it because I started getting really bad skin rashes from it. Like the whole back of my neck and the top of my ears would get like hard and dried out skin. I was like, oh, it's disgusting. So I stopped. I just started using water. And today I use nothing. Today I just basically brush my hair in the morning. That's it.
and that kind of stuff. But for the most part, here's how you succeed in the game.
I can't bring back the hair gel. I literally explained why. I have sensitive skin. It makes my skin be really disgusting. So that's why I stopped using it.
You play apprehensively. You play carefully. You got to think, like, if I were in real life, would I want to fight 5 guys at once or 1 guy? And you play it carefully. And most of the time, if you play with common sense, you will succeed. The things that piss me off about the game are things that have nothing to do with common sense. Things that are traps. Things that are meant to intentionally fuck you and make you have to replay multiple times things that you've already sped through and already beaten, but you have to beat them over and over and over to get to the next part. And there will be times when you will instantly die, and you're like, well, now I know that I instantly die that way. There was no way for me to know that before, but now I have to replay 15 minutes of gameplay to get back to where I was, okay? And that's fucking frustrating as hell, dying just for the sake of dying, for the sake of trial and error, until you figure out, should I have done X or should I have done Y here? And you say,
and quite frankly, the more you play FromSoft games, what you actually realize, that's what they are. It's not like, oh, I instantly reacted. I had a great reaction to something I saw. It's memorization. Once you fail, then you see how you failed. You remember how you failed, so you don't fail the same way twice. In fact, that's how you beat the bosses. You have to memorize their patterns. It's very rare you're going to run into a tough boss fight and just react to everything magically, perfectly. You got to see the boss pattern, memorize the pattern, then you'll be able to dodge or get around it, right? Instant death trap, know it's there, find a way to get around it. That's how the games are. At that time, again, I was playing mostly AAA mainstream games. no games were like that for me. So this was the first experience I had with like an ultra frustrating game of expecting you to replay, and memorize things.
Oh, I should have done Y, but there was no way for me to learn that without dying and having to replay stuff, okay? Now, another thing that pisses me off about the game, the saving system and the soul system. The way the game works is the more things you kill, you earn souls. And the souls are used for multiple things. You can buy things from vendors.
That's a really nice looking box, is it not? I got a steel box tin there, it looks like. That's a nice looking game box. It's pretty sweet.
Weapons and items. You can level up your weapons and armor at blacksmiths. You can level up your character at bonfires. Bonfires are fires that you find, that allow you to save your game. And I like aspects of it and I don't like aspects of it. What I like is every time you find a bonfire, you automatically replenish all your healing items. That's cool. I like that. What I don't like is you automatically respawn every enemy in the game except for the uniques and the bosses, okay? So, you just spent 40 minutes to find this fucking bonfire. Yes, I finally did it. And now, every enemy you just killed has reappeared. And it could really be frustrating because the problem is the game doesn't have a lot of bonfires. The bonfires aren't very frequent. The ones that you...
Way less bonfires in Dark Souls 1 than in future Dark Souls games. In fact, I'd almost argue the FromSoft games just kept increasing the amount of those checkpoints every new game, right? Now take a look at Elden Ring. Elden Ring has shitloads of those points of grace, right?
Fine are few and far between, and a lot of the times what the game ends up doing is giving you paths back to previous bonfires so that if you die, you can respawn from that bonfire and then come back. The problem being, a lot of the times you have to grind through dozens of enemies to get back to where you were when you died. And you might say, well, why do you need to get back to that exact place where you died? And the answer is, like I said, you gain souls as you kill things, and that's the currency of the game. It's necessary to get souls to succeed in this game and do anything in this game, but when you die, you lose them all, okay? You lose every soul that is on your body, and what happens is a green mist appears where you died. So now you have to go back to whatever previous bonfire you touched, and from there, fight your way back to where you were and touch the green mist. And I could understand that if there was a checkpoint system, meaning, okay, you died halfway through the dungeon, so the checkpoint is at the beginning of the dungeon, get to the center of the dungeon again and get your souls back. But it's not. It's go back to the previous bonfire, which could literally be 10 minutes away from the beginning of the dungeon, and then you have to get from the beginning of the dungeon to where you were, and it's so frustrating to have to repeatedly do this over and over, because as I said, the game...
I don't know, I think my review is pretty level-headed, don't you? Like, a lot of people hated this review. Did you see the comments? But I think this review is quite level-headed. No? Am I wrong? Haseo says, I remember waiting for you to finish games so I could hear your game reviews, and many of these helped me to decide if I wanted to buy said game. There you go.
It's unforgiving, and when you first come up against certain areas and certain obstacles, you will die repeatedly. And, you know, dying repeatedly is going to piss you off because you have to keep going back and grinding back through shit you've already beaten.
By the way, look. Does it look familiar? Look what's behind me right now, and look what's right here. Same picture. Yep, there's the tire. It's blue. There's the checkerboard. Yep, it's right there. It was on my wall, and here it is behind me right now, 13 years later. Pretty cool.
To get to where you were. And it really is frustrating, that repetition aspect, especially for people who think, you know, their time is precious. My time is precious. I don't want to replay the same part of the game 42 times just because there's another obstacle that I need to learn how to beat, and then I die the first time, go back, pass that one, then die at another one, go back, and you just keep replaying that same part of the game over and over and over until you finally get to the next bonfire. It's extremely time-consuming, frustrating, and for me, boring. And that's really where I want to go next with this review, is the difference between what I feel is challenge in a game and actually becoming hard work, something considered actual work, and the difference between having fun and putting in time and feeling accomplished, okay? Dark Souls, for me, is a kind of game that it's work, meaning it's so hard, okay? And keep in mind, I'm not a hardcore gamer, like I said, I don't usually play games like this, you know? I play everything, but I don't usually play games that are this hard.
Right, I always played the big AAA games, but let's be honest, the big AAA games were always watered down, dumbed down, not very tough. So this was literally the hardest game I had played as a YouTuber at this time.
Play Demon's Souls. So maybe it is actually even harder for me because I didn't have a background in what kind of a game this was going to be. But that being said, for me, the fact that you have to, oh, you died, go back to a bonfire, grind for another 10 minutes to get back to where you were, that's work. That's repetitive, boring, not fun to have to repetitively do this kind of stuff over and over and over because they decided to make this game so hard, okay? For some people, they would actually probably feel accomplished and say, wow, I got past this part that I was stuck on for 2 hours, that feels great. For me, having to replay the same thing for 2 fucking hours straight isn't my idea of fun. And when I play a video game, okay, I expect a video game, unless it is a competitive video game and I am participating in an actual tournament or competition, a video game is something that's supposed to be sat down, learned, sure, there has to be some kind of a period of learning, but then played and enjoyed, okay? And repetition to the point of how much Dark Souls makes you repeat certain things, unless, of course, you're using a strategy guide so you know exactly what you're supposed to do, or you found some exploits so you have godlike armor now and you don't die and stuff like that. The repetition makes the game boring, and it actually makes...
Can you imagine 2011 Phil knowing that 13 years later, I would be spending 5 hours on bosses in, like, Elden Ring, right? Melania and Radon. Like, you imagine you talk to young Phil about this 13 years ago and say, hey, 31-year-old Phil, just so you know, or excuse me, not 31, 27, 28-year-old Phil? I would have been 28 here. Hey, 28-year-old Phil, just so you know, when you're 42 years old, you'll be fighting bosses in the latest FromSoft game for 5 to 6 hours. I would have been like, are you out of your fucking mind? I probably would have taken that game and said, no, never. I would have thrown it out of my window and banished it outside of my condo. I want nothing to do with this if I had known this, right? How things change. Then again, if you told, 28-year-old Phil that when I was 42, I was going to be way better at Street Fighter, and I was actually going to be like, doing really good stuff in games that's like, you know what I mean? I probably wouldn't have believed you then either, because at this point, I didn't even care about Street Fighter. I was just dicking around with fighting games, so.
The game become what I consider work. You're putting in so much time, so much dedication to beat this game and to be good at it, that it's not proportionate to the amount of fun that you get out of the game. Now, that's my opinion. There may be people that like this kind of thing. They maybe actually think that the common game is too easy. They like challenging things.
There you go.
For me,
this is the most level-headed review. I don't know why people freaked out at it and were angry at me for doing this review. This sounds so fair to me.
I have no problem.
And this is 13 years later. This still sounds very fair to me.
With challenge, but I think Dark Souls is challenging to the point where if I'm going to put in this much time and effort and repetition, I'd rather go do something else. I would. Maybe I'd like to go fucking learn something that could actually help me in the real world. You know what I mean? If I'm going to put in this many hours of time and dedication into something, I want to get something out of it. And hate to say it, but 99.9% of the people that play Dark Souls don't get paid for it like I am, because I get paid when people watch my videos. Most people are going to say, no, this game, it requires too much fucking effort to beat it. And I don't know. I mean, I really think...
What's funny is I was getting paid. Look at the views on the videos. Part 1, probably maybe a couple $100. That final part when I quit, probably maybe $150. All that entire playthrough together probably made me like $1,000. Seriously, if not more. And yet, even that wasn't enough to convince me to keep playing it. I was like, I want to do other games. I find other games more fun. So most people were not making no money at all playing that game, yet they toughed through it. It's like, wow, people really were dedicated back then. Today, now you have so many guides. The wiki is available that explains everything to you on how to play it. There's 5 zillion walkthroughs of this game on YouTube. Now, if you want to get into FromSoft games, you absolutely, positively can do it in a way where you can educate yourself and learn. Back then, this didn't exist, so it was like, you're just trying to figure it out for yourself on the fly. It's like torture in some cases. You know what I mean?
I really think that indifferent people will like this game. There is an audience for this game. People who like these extremely hard, challenging games. They don't mind buying one game for $60 and playing it for 2 months. You know what I mean? They'll play it for 2 months and say, wow, that was a great game. For me, I want to play all the cool games. I have to get onto other games. I don't have the time to spend to dedicate to one fucking game just because the game makers felt that this game had to be as difficult as it is. And that's another thing that I do want to say. I really
And there you go too. Like that was different. Most people, when they buy a game or two, they only play 1 or 2 games. They're not playing juggling a million games like I was. That's another reason, being a YouTuber trying to get through so many playthroughs. How was I going to have enough time to dedicate to get good at this game when I had a million other games coming out? I didn't. Today's a lot different the way I do stuff. But back then, I was always constantly trying to rush through every new release. So my situation was very unique. Many people out there, including many of you here right now watching, maybe like, yeah, I only usually play 1 game at a time. I would dedicate a ton of time to beating Dark Souls. There you go. So that was why it was so different for me.
feel that FromSoft, the designers of this game, really made the selling point of the game that it is so hard and unforgiving. Honestly, outside of that, what is very unique about Dark Souls? I mean, it's a dungeon crawler. You fight bosses. You use magic. You use healing items. You've played games like this before. Honestly, the only unique thing about the game is that it's so fucking difficult that you will spend a ridiculous amount of time.
And you know what? The truth is, if you think about all FromSoft games, because you can argue, well, that's not true because Demon Souls, Dark Souls, they're gothic horror plus difficulty. But what about Bloodborne? Oh, well, that's like British horror. What's the other thing? Cthulhu-like, right? Like Lovecraftian horror plus difficulty. Okay. What about Sekiro? Like Japanese horror plus difficulty. Okay, you can keep arguing that, but it's like, no, what's the common factor between all of the franchises? The difficulty and the mechanics of the difficulty. The bonfire save point. The difficulty of the combat being slightly delayed no matter what. The dodge doesn't exactly come out when you press it. You know what I'm saying? Like, they all have that commonality, but really it is the difficulty that ties them all together, for sure.
Learning it and having to play it completely differently from any other video game that you've played.
Right.
So, is that enough to sell a game? You know what?
Yes, it is. And we all know that now, but this was my first experience with it. Now you can be like, oh yeah, that'll sell games for sure. That's FromSoft's shtick. And now look at all the different Souls-likes that have come out. Other companies riding the coattails of FromSoft to make popular franchises like Lies of P, Another Crab's Treasure, Lords of the Fallen. Yeah, there's tons of other companies doing it too. Neo.
I mean, you just paid $60 to spend 80 hours playing a difficult game. But is that enough? For me, I judge a game off of everything. Innovation, gameplay, but fun factor is also a major part. And for me, unless I'm, winning at a game, I'm not necessarily having fun.
See, so there you go. So people are like, see, you're a noob, get good, because you only have fun when you're winning, instant win. You want a game that it's easy to beat. I mean, in reality, what I was really saying is I want a game that's quick to beat. That's actually what I was saying. I want a game that I know I can get through it within, say, a week to 2 weeks tops, because I need to get onto all the next games. Most people don't have that problem. I did, because that was my job, you see?
Now, again, some people would like to spend 80 hours to beat this game, and then they get the fun out of it. For me, 80-hour investment into one game just to beat it is too much. It's work. It's considered work. And so for me, for a person like me, you're probably going to think this game is not a good investment. You're going to say, well, it's okay, it's good to a point, but then when you finally get to the most difficult parts, like for me, when I got to Blight Town, which is a part of the game where it's so hard, okay? You're fighting completely unique enemies. You never fought anything like them before. They're killing you with only a couple hits. You get poisoned every time you get hit. You only have limited items to cure the poison. Then later on, you end up walking into a bog, which is unavoidable, which poisons you while you're in there. And it's just like, it's enough. It's enough. I've had enough to the point where I don't want to invest any more time into this game because I know it's going to take me another 4 hours to get through this part of the game. And I'm just not getting enough reward out of this game. I'm not getting enough fun factor that it's worth it for me to grind through this fucking bullshit.
And I think that everyone, if you're not having fun with a game, you should have the ability to say, I don't want to play it anymore. For me, this was my first experience quitting a game like this, and people gave me such shit. They were like, dude, you rage quit, you're a piece of shit, you suck. This was for some people, this was the turning point where they started to not like me. For some people, it was the Metal Gear Solid HD playthroughs, like Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3. That was when they started to not like me. For a lot of people, it was when I got with my ex, and my ex became a part of my content. That was the turning point. But basically, this was like one of the 3 things that got common opinion against me. Before this, people actually just outright liked everything I did. They're like, yeah, this is fine. This is good. But this was kind of the turning point where people started to say, oh, you see, he just wants easy mode games so he can get views and make money. He doesn't deserve any of his popularity. And it was this big kind of toxic turn against me that happened this was the starting point. And then 2012 was a pivotal year. And then basically when I moved out here in 2014, that was the big turning point where like all of the internet started to turn against me.
Bullshit and get to the next part of the game and that next bonfire.
But the funny part is, do I sound like I'm being unfair to Dark Souls in this review? This sounds pretty level-headed and fair to me, especially I'm explaining my situation, how it's different from most other people's, but people really didn't like it. They were angry with me.
And keep playing. So, it's a unique style of game. I understand the people who would like it, but the common person probably isn't going to want to put up with the amount of difficulty that this game requires, the amount of repetition and work that this game requires to beat it. So
and that's the truth, because if you look, Dark Souls 1 originally was not an insanely huge seller. The games grew in popularity over time and built up a fan base. And then when Elden Ring came out, that was the one that absolutely exploded in popularity and made these games become mainstream. But before then, it was kind of like this more niche audience, and then it grew a little more, and then it grew a little more. Each new iteration, like Bloodborne, that got a little bit more people. Sekiro, that got a little bit more people. I mean, Sekiro won Game of the Year, right? And that's really where they got their mainstream attention. And then Elden Ring, oh my God. So at this point in 2011, I think what I'm saying rung true, but then over time, the games became way more and more mainstream popular. And let's also be honest, they got easier. Every one gets progressively easier. Everyone could argue Dark Souls 1 is probably the hardest one, right?
Honestly, for me, in comparison to all the other games that I've played, and especially the games recently, Dark Souls is not a bad game. In fact, it's a good game. In fact, in some parts, it's a great game. When you figure out how to do something that's difficult, or when you kill a really big cool boss, you actually say, yes, this is great. But then, you kind of get disappointed. You're like, fuck, now I gotta spend another couple hours figuring out where to go. Now I gotta spend another couple hours grinding through a new dungeon till I get to another place where I can say, ah, that felt good. And for me, those spots are too few and far between. So, for me, in comparison to all the other games that I've played this year, I'm gonna be honest, I'm actually going to give Dark Souls an 8. An 8 out of 10. And I know
I gave a game I didn't even finish and had strong criticisms of an 8 out of 10. And people disliked me for that. Figure that one out. PS3 Troop says, I can't lie, I didn't like that you were so critical of Metal Gear Solid series. I was a fanboy at the time, but I didn't hate you for that. I still watched your playthrough. There you go.
you were all expecting me to probably slam the game and say that it's a bad game. It's not a bad game by any means. It's just a fucking hard-ass game to play. For me, it's not Game of the Year. And I know a lot of people might disagree. It's going to be those people who love this style of difficult game.
For me, there were 2 Game of the Year candidates, Skyrim and Batman Arkham City, and I gave it to Skyrim. Yep.
And unique gameplay in that, you know, it is so difficult. But for me, the fact that the game is difficult doesn't make it a game that makes it so amazingly good. I think that's good to appeal to that niche audience, and some people are going to love it for that, but definitely the common person is not going to love it for that. So for me, judging it off of fun factor, the fact that the common person won't want to invest the amount of repetition and work that it takes to beat this game, I can't give it any higher than an 8, okay? So that's Dark Souls in a nutshell. I hope that you now have a more fair and balanced understanding of what this game is. And if it is for your forte to go out there and spend $60 to spend, you know, 80 hours on a game and repetitively die, and you're okay with that as long as you can eventually overcome it, this is your game. But if you're the kind of person like me who doesn't want to put ridiculous amounts of work into a video game, something you're supposed to be doing, that you're not competing, you're not trying to win money doing this, you're just playing a single player game, a campaign, and you don't want to put that kind of investment into it, this isn't going to be your game. And I get the feeling that probably it's like an 80-20 split. 20% of the people will love it, 80% of the people will not want to play this game. So, it's an 8 out of 10. Could be.
And you know what? It is a testament that the ones that became uber popular, like Elden Ring, had the most tools to overcome that level of challenge, right? There's Ash summons. You can summon co-op partners. There's a million different builds. There's a million different ways to level. If you can't beat something, you could go do something else. In this case, I had to beat Blighttown. If you don't, the game's over. But in Elden Ring, oh, I can't beat this. Go off and do 10 more things, right? Exactly. So yeah, and the funny part again is I didn't hate on the game. I liked it. I just thought it was too hard for me. But people hated this review and were very upset with me that I would, well, how dare you review a game you didn't beat?
Better,
right?
but
Like, take a look here. Hold on.
Difficult.
Take a look at the comments. How can you, here you go. How can you rate a game you didn't beat? Get good, you casual. If you didn't learn the plunging attack from earlier, you mean the tutorial messages on the other side of that door? Yeah, I missed it because I didn't even understand what those were. Why are you still alive? From 2014, someone left that comment on the video. Incompetence is an extremely annoying thing to watch. The time-consuming bit is a lack of skill, his failure to realize he isn't as good as he thinks he is. You know, one of the things, I totally remember one of the points I made that everyone made fun of me for was this. I said, I don't like the fact that this game expects that you're supposed to research. Like, there's literal things in the game that aren't explained that you need to research to understand. Like, you don't actually know the leveling system, how it works. You don't know how a build works. You have to kind of basically research to figure that out. So you need a strategy guide. You got to go online to a video or a wiki, and then you'll get it. And once you get it, then it's better, but you don't understand it at first. And people were like, oh, how dare you? You should be researching all the games you play and stuff. I'm like, but that's not me. I like to play games cold. I want to go in without any preconceived notion of what that game is and experience it for the first time as I play it, not because I've looked into it for hours earlier than that, you know? And that I think to this day, now what's happened 13 years later is everyone does this. Everyone knows every piece of every game before they even buy it. So by the time you buy it, there's like no surprises anymore, right? There's like nothing special anymore. And that's sad. You know what I'm saying? That's sad that right back then I want to play a game cold and understand it. And this game, Dark Souls, was very hard to do that and enjoy. You had to go out of your comfort zone to go research or whatever. And I didn't like that, but people gave me shit for it, for saying that. Look, casual, I'm casual, DSP Gaming. Yeah, did this guy not even hear what I just said? In the review, I outright say yes, because this is a game that I'm not competing. I'm not looking to be better than you at it. I'm not in a competition. This isn't Street Fighter or Call of Duty where you're competing. It's a single-player game. And this guy goes, casual. Yeah, that's the point. That's what I'm saying. For me, gaming is a casual thing you do to have enjoyment. I'm not trying to challenge myself with games that are uber difficult. What's the point of that? Today, people like to see this. They like to see me challenge myself at FromSoft because they get some enjoyment out of seeing me fail, rage, but then persevere, right? How many people right now are enjoying my fight with Radon at the end of the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC? Because that's exactly what it was, correct? But back then, that's not what it was, you know? Look at this. This fat pig can't stop burping in his videos. 33 thumbs up. But you see, this is 9 years ago, so this would have been 2015. So see what I said? This video is 2011. You notice most of the negative comments here that are getting voted up are more recent than that. See that? Yeah. Most of them are more recent. Most of the negative comments are from like 2014, 2015. See? Because this is when people started turning against me and hated my guts. See, why are you a casual? DSP does not have the skill necessary to play Dark Souls with style and finesse. He lacks concentration, basic skill solving skills, and patience. Look, amen, here's my thumbs up. I quit after 2 hours trying to beat the Capra Demon, which consisted of approximately 150 seconds inside his room. That one only got 2 thumbs up, right? That one only got 2 thumbs up because it was actually a positive vote, right? Anything that disagrees with me got upvoted. Anything that agrees with me, basically no one voted on, right? So there you go. All right, so folks, look at that. Look at that face to end it. That is it for my retro react to my original Dark Souls 1 run in 2011. That is epic. I'm glad we did it. Like, that's the kind of content I really enjoyed putting out for this channel because I had never gone back and watched that playthrough, ever. You know, I remembered certain moments of it and stuff that I put in other series like Project 7, but I had never gone back and watched that ever. And that was super fun to be able to interact with this live audience 13 years later, to re-experience it. And boy, I timed it with a DLC for Elden Ring. This worked really well. So this is a good one. I hope you enjoyed. I hope if you really did enjoy this series, please consider liking the videos, leaving comments, and tell people. Say, hey, Phil reacted to his original playthrough. You might really like that if you liked his old stuff. It's really fun to see him today in the modern day react to the classics, right? And thank you all. You guys are awesome. Thank you for supporting the streams. This has been an awesome one. You know, we've been doing this for 5 months on and off, and now we finally finished it. And it was really cool. So thank you all so much. And it was a great time. I hope that we can do this with more of the classic playthroughs. Let me know what you feel are the classic playthroughs from back in the day that I was using a camera to record that you would like to see me do a reaction to. All right? But in the meantime, thank you for Retro React of Dark Souls 1. It was a great time. I will see you soon for more.